Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to explore something that really affects all of us. Why our brains, even the sharpest ones, can get so easily tricked by medical misinformation. And here's the thing, it's not really about intelligence. It's about how we're wired. So let's just make this real for a second. You're faced with a choice, right? You've got some complex, maybe even scary advice from a doctor, and then you've got a simple tip that lands in your family WhatsApp group. It seems like it should be an easy call, but, well, as we're about to see, our brains often pull us in a pretty surprising direction. Okay, so here's our first situation. A woman has been dealing with knee pain for months. She finally sees a doctor who tells her it's cartilage wear, and the plan is months of physiotherapy. But on her way home, a neighbor suggests this special oil treatment, promising it'll give her quick relief. She goes for the simpler fix. But months down the line, her knee is much worse, and now she's actually looking at surgery. Or how about this guy? A cardiologist tells him he has a minor blockage and needs a stent. Then a friend forwards him one of those messages, you've probably seen them, about a miracle juice that can clear his arteries, completely naturally. You see the dilemma? The doctor's advice is complicated and a little scary. The juice is simple and full of hope. This is exactly the kind of crossroads where misinformation just thrives. So the crucial point to get here is that this isn't some kind of failure of intelligence. It's really a feature of our own psychology. You see, our brains evolved with these mental shortcuts that helped us survive. But in today's world of just constant information, they can seriously lead us astray. Psychologists often talk about two systems for thinking. System 2, that's our slow, logical brain. It's the one that analyzes and reasons things out. But when we're feeling stressed or scared, like right after a worrying diagnosis, our brain defaults to System 1. And System 1 is fast, it's intuitive, it's emotional. It wants quick, simple answers, not some complex medical jargon. And you have to remember, for thousands and thousands of years, our survival literally depended on sticking with our tribe. If you question the group, that could be dangerous. That programming is still deep inside us. It's called the conformity effect. And it's why a piece of advice from a trusted friend can sometimes feel more real, more compelling than advice from a doctor we just met. We're just wired to trust our inner circle. Our brains also have what you could call a simplicity bias. I mean, who doesn't like an easy answer? We're naturally drawn to them. A miracle juice just feels so much more manageable and way less frightening than, say, invasive surgery. Our brain just prefers the path of least resistance, even if it's not the one that's backed by evidence. And then there's this thing called cognitive dissonance. It's that uncomfortable mental friction you feel when some new piece of information just clashes with a belief you've held for a long time. So if you've always believed that food is medicine, it can be incredibly hard to accept a diagnosis that requires, a pharmaceutical drug. To make that uncomfortable feeling go away, it's often just easier to reject the doctor's advice than it is to change a lifelong belief. And of course, our minds lean on other shortcuts all the time. We give so much weight to personal stories. The classic anecdote about a cousin who was cured by some special remedy. We also mistake coincidence for cause, like assuming a vaccine caused a heart attack just because one happened right after the other. These shortcuts are powerful, for sure, but in medicine, they can be dangerously misleading. Okay, so take all of that ancient psychological wiring we just talked about, and now let's plug it into our modern digital world. Suddenly, it all gets supercharged. Social media turns what used to be a stream of information into a fire hose. And believe me, it is not always clean water. In fact, get this. Studies are showing that nearly one-third of all the health-related info you see circulating on social media is probably false or misleading. Just think about that for a second. 1 out of every 3 posts. That is a staggering amount of noise to have to filter through. So why does this stuff spread so well? Well, it's basically engineered to hack our emotions. It completely bypasses our logical System 2 brain by triggering really strong feelings. A post about a miracle cure, that creates surprise and hope. A warning about some toxic treatment, that creates fear. That emotional charge makes us much more likely to believe it, and, this is the key part, to share it. And this brings us to this really fascinating psychological quirk that explains so much. It explains the rise of the super confident but totally unqualified health influencer. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a cognitive bias where just a little bit of knowledge leads to a huge amount of confidence. So here's basically how it works. A novice, somebody who's just learned a little bit, climbs up what some people call Mount Stupid. They feel incredibly confident in their limited knowledge. Real experts, on the other hand, they're painfully aware of how much they don't know, so their confidence is often much more measured. And on social media, the loud confidence of the novice often sounds way more persuasive than the careful nuance of the expert. So you've got this misinformation that's engineered to trigger our emotions, and it's delivered with the powerful, unshakable confidence of the Dunning-Kruger effect. That combination is just incredibly potent. It's why one major study found that on social media, lies can spread 6 times faster than the truth. So, faced with this constant onslaught, what can we do? How can we protect ourselves? Well, it's not about becoming a medical expert overnight. It's really about learning to spot a few key red flags and developing your own little toolkit for thinking critically. Here are 4 simple steps. First, always check the source. Is this coming from a celebrity or from a peer-reviewed medical journal? Second, question your own emotions. Does this post make you feel really intense fear or anger? If it does, just pause. That's a tactic. Third, beware of certainty. Words like guaranteed or miracle, those are huge red flags. Science speaks in probabilities, not absolutes. And finally, scrutinize any extraordinary claims. A promise to cure an incurable disease? That's going to require some extraordinary evidence. When you really boil it all down, this entire complicated conversation can actually be simplified quite a bit. It comes down to one fundamental distinction that just cuts through all the noise. Yeah, it's really easy to get lost in all these terms like allopathy versus natural. But the most useful way to think about this is much, much simpler. The only question that really matters is this: has this treatment been scientifically and rigorously proven to be safe and effective? Is there high-quality evidence? If the answer is yes, well, then it's medicine. If the answer is no, or maybe we don't know yet, then it's a gamble. And that right there is the key takeaway. The goal isn't to distrust everything you see, but to practice what you could call empowered skepticism. So the final question is really for you. Armed with this knowledge, what piece of information, whether it's health-related or not, will you look at just a little more critically this week? Because your best defense, really, is a curious and questioning mind.